To save face, my fiancé slapped me hard in front of everyone, straight up wild. That day, I deleted all of her contact information. Everyone was in disbelief. I grew up with Lena Morrison. From age 6 to 24, I followed her like a shadow for 18 long years. The day I was leaving the country, she stopped me, her voice holding a confusion I'd never heard before. But, just because I hit you? I looked her straight in the eye and said, word by word, yes, just because you hit me. When that slap landed, my world suddenly went silent, like everything went mute. The palm of Lena Morrison's hand carried a sharp gust of wind. A dull thud. My head snapped to the side. A metallic tang filled my mouth, and my eardrums buzzed as if 1,000 bees were beating their wings inside my skull. I staggered, steadying myself against the office desk, my fingertips trembling. My left cheek was numb at first. Then it burned with a searing pain as if branded by a hot iron. When I looked up, I saw Lena Morrison's hand still suspended in midair, her knuckles white. My childhood sweetheart, my fiancé, was at this moment defending her male secretary by slapping me in public, no shame at all. Lena Morrison realized what she had done. Her expression froze for a second, but it was quickly replaced by anger and impatience. Ethan Price, can you stop making a scene? Someone in the office let out a low snicker. Most remained silent, watching the drama unfold like it was some messed up show. Blake Sterling's chestnut brown hair shimmered like honey under the lights. He leaned against Lena Morrison's side, a smirk playing on his lips. Lena, don't be so fierce. Look, you've scared him. Your little big brother is about to cry. Hearing this, Lena Morrison's jaw tightened, the anger in her eyes unabated. Ethan Price, this is the company, not your home. Why are you making such a big deal out of nothing? A grown man crying. I really can't stand you anymore. Her voice was laced with ice, and waves of muffled laughter echoed through the office. I touched the corner of my mouth, feeling something wet. I couldn't tell if it was blood or tears. For 18 years, I had seen all of her tempers, but I never knew she could hit so hard. A mixture of shame, grievance, and resentment washed over me, pure chaos inside. I dug my nails deep into my palms. Lena Morrison wanted to say more, but I didn't want to listen anymore. As I grabbed my phone and rushed out the glass door, I heard whispers behind me. My God, if I were him, I'd be too ashamed to ever show my face in this company again. I didn't know where to go, but I didn't want to be at work. Even less did I want to stay and face the crowd in the office. The truth is, Lena Morrison had always been impatient with me, but this was the first time she had ever hit me. Not only that, it was the first time in my entire life that I had been slapped. When I moved into my new home at the age of 6, Lena Morrison was squatting in the hallway playing with a Barbie doll. Sunlight slanted in from the window at the end of the corridor, stretching her shadow long, so long it just touched the tips of my toes. We lived next door to each other, our two families sharing a small garden. My mom always said that Lena Morrison and I were two little saplings that grew up door to door, destined to walk side by side in the future. It was just that her tree from a young age grew with more vitality than mine. So all these years, I was the one always chasing after her. But we did have our innocent, carefree times. The winter of second grade was especially cold. Nina Chin, who sat behind me, kept poking me with a pencil during class. When I turned around, she kissed me, out of nowhere. I heard a burst of harsh laughter from the classroom. I ended up crying, and the teacher tried to smooth things over, saying, "It's because you're good looking that girls want to kiss you. She just wants to play with you, so stop crying." Those words were more nauseating than her kiss, no cap. That day, I cried the whole way home from school. When Uncle Morrison found out, he called over his daughter, who was busy doing her homework. "Lena, go check on your brother Ethan Price's class tomorrow." The next day, during morning exercises, the scene of Lena Morrison kicking open the back door of our classroom got burned into my memory for the next 15 years. She lunged at Nina Chen like a little leopard, her fist slamming down on the desk with a dull thud. "Listen up," she said, grabbing Nina Chen by her pigtails, her voice still carrying that childish lilt. "Ethan Price is my brother. If you dare bully him again, I'll come here and beat you up every single day." When she left, she smiled and patted my head, all calm and reassuring. From then on, I became the little tail Lena Morrison could never shake off. In middle school, after tennis practice, she always wanted to grab ice cream with her teammates. I'd just squat by the court, hugging my school bag, watching the sunset stretch our shadows longer and longer. She'd grab me, grumbling, "Ethan, are you made of super glue or what?" But she'd still snap her strawberry popsicle in half and hand me a piece. She really hated people saying she had a tag-along everywhere she went. Once, while shopping, her best friend teased, "What? You brought your little boyfriend too?" Lena got so mad she dumped her entire milk tea straight into the sewer. But the very next day, when I had a fever and didn't go to school, she skipped class, climbed over the wall, and came to my house. She tossed little paper notes through my window, covered in crooked, badly written jokes. In high school, I caught Lena Morrison secretly looking at me countless times. When I was chewing on my pen while solving math problems, when my bangs fluttered in the wind, even when I was just taking a quick nap on my desk. Her gaze was like a cicada's wing in summer, brushing past lightly before flying away in a flash. Little sister Lena. I suddenly turned my head, catching her eyes before she could look away. "How do you solve this problem?" Her pen clattered onto the desk. Morning light streamed through the window, making her flushed earlobes almost look transparent. She fumbled to pick up her pen, the tips of her hair brushing against the back of my hand. "You just substitute this X into..." Her voice got quieter and quieter, until it turned into a vague mumble. I rested my chin on my hand and watched her. Turns out the girl who wouldn't even blink when fighting for me could also blush just because I got close. Outside the window, magnolia petals drifted down onto her open textbook. The night our parents proposed an arranged marriage, she dragged me into the fire escape. The motion sensor light flickered on and off. Her palms were sweaty, but she gripped my fingers so tightly it hurt. "Think it through," she said, her throat tight. "We're still young. What if we meet someone better in the future?" I stood on my toes and covered her lips. Little sister Lena is the best person in the world. She trembled all over, then suddenly pinned me against the wall and kissed me. In the darkness, I felt the scar on the back of her neck. She got it in 8th grade, shielding me from a falling object. Moonlight filtered through the iron bars that night, scattering across our bodies. It made me stupidly believe we were in love. After graduating from university, I joined the Morrison Group and became Lena Morrison's subordinate. Just as we were about to get engaged, Blake Sterling showed up. He was a new intern at the company, and also Lena Morrison's secretary. On his first day, he brought coffee for every colleague, flashing a big grin. "I'll be counting on all you pros to guide me from now on, Tilda." The coffee stopped short when it reached my desk. "Oh my God." He covered his mouth and giggled. "There are still guys who use Hello Kitty thermal mugs? That's so girly." When I didn't say anything, he blinked. "Oh, sorry. I'm just the kind of guy who says what he thinks. I didn't mean you're gay or anything, Tilda, but big brother, how old are you? Still so young at heart." I thought men in the workplace were all mature, rational, and had good taste. The entire office's gaze snapped onto me like spotlights. My cartoon-themed keyboard. My anime figurines. Even the dust-proof stickers of different anime characters stuck around my monitor frame. All those things Lena Morrison used to laugh and call my treasures were now laid out and judged under everyone's eyes. In that moment, my ears buzzed, like someone had dumped an entire can of sulfuric acid straight into my skull. It was the first time I'd ever been maliciously mocked in public, and the humiliation hit hard. So hard it was almost unbearable. Sorry, I'm just a bit blunt, Tilda." He tilted his head, tapping the My Melody coaster on my desk. "You're not really gonna get mad over a little joke, are you, big bro?" My fingers clenched around my sleeves until my knuckles turned white. "That's enough." Lena Morrison's voice came from behind me. When I turned around, her lips were already curved into a dangerous arc. Sunlight poured in through the floor-to-ceiling window behind her, outlining her figure in gold. For a split second, she looked exactly like the girl from middle school, the one who used to stand up and fight for me. Blake Sterling shot me an unhappy look. I was just joking around with Big Brother Tilda, President Morrison. You're not seriously gonna police this too, right? Tilda, Lena said coldly, the office isn't a place for chatting. Secretary Sterling, if you want to chat so badly, I suggest you resign and talk all you want. In the end, Blake Sterling went back to his desk, clearly annoyed. I don't even know when Lena Morrison and Blake Sterling got that close. One day out of nowhere, the lunch our nanny sent from home became a meal for 3. There's not a single dish I like today. My voice shook a little. Lena Morrison didn't even lift her head from the report. We're eating light food today. Blake added casually, eating light once in a while is good for detoxing. Blake Sterling sat down next to me with his coffee. Sorry, big brother Tilda. I looked at him. He raised an eyebrow, a playful grin tugging at his lips. I forgot you don't eat light food, but honestly, it's healthier. You should eat more of it too, big brother. You're wearing XXL now, right? Not like me. He didn't finish the sentence, but the smug curve of his lips said the rest. You really like calling people big brother. My voice stayed soft. But my parents only have one son. And besides, aren't you a month older than me? The office went dead silent. Blake Sterling looked like he'd just been slapped across the face. His eyes, made sharper by contact lenses, twitched uncontrollably. Lena Morrison finally put her file down, but she was frowning at me. Ethan Price, that's going too far. The girl who once got into a fight because someone called me delicate was now accusing me of crossing the line. For another man. I'm going too far? I sneered. Or am I interrupting you too? I turned to leave. Almost on instinct, Lena Morrison wrapped her arms around me, just like she had back in 8th grade when I'd been cornered in an alley by a group of thugs. But this time, her embrace was mixed with a strange man's cologne, and her soothing words carried a trace of impatience. All right. I'll have the nanny make Chinese food tomorrow. Don't be mad, okay? Blake Sterling's face darkened instantly. From the very next day, his targeting of me went into overdrive. I came to work carrying a bag with a Minions keychain. Blake immediately covered his mouth in an exaggerated gasp, pitching his voice up an octave. Wow, you're a grown man and you still like Minions? Ethan Price, your taste is something else. Who among us young people still likes this kind of stuff? We're all buying luxury brands now, you country bumpkin. A few female colleagues around him burst into laughter. At lunch, I wiped my disposable chopsticks with a wet wipe. He instantly elbowed the girl beside him and copied me in a shrill voice. Oh my, Tilda, the chopsticks must be sanitized. What is this, a Disney princess on the run? Several girls pulled exaggerated faces, laughing like it was comedy gold. During the company's annual desk rearrangement, I was moving my monitor, my arms sore and aching. I just paused to catch my breath when Blake Sterling suddenly jumped up, slapped the table, and shouted like a street clown. Look, everyone! The Disney princess on the run can't even move it. Any brave knights here want to save the damsel in distress. He and his little crew laughed until they were bent double. Some of them even shamelessly took photos and videos. At first, Lena Morrison would frown and mutter, "That's enough. Don't go too far." But Blake Sterling always wriggled out of it with a grin. "Oh, come on. It's just a joke. Ethan Price is always so serious. I'm just trying to help him loosen up a bit." Lena Morrison stayed quiet for a moment, then actually nodded. "He is kind of an eyesore. Are all men so delicate these days?" Blake Sterling immediately laughed and tapped her on the head. "Hey, don't paint everyone with the same brush. I'm not like that." Lena Morrison smiled, her eyes full of admiration and indulgence. My heart felt like it was being squeezed hard. Yeah, Lena Morrison had always thought I was delicate, overly sensitive, and introverted. In her eyes, liking anime was childish. Being clean was obsessive. Being quiet was antisocial. Yet these were all things she once indulged, right up until the day I finally snapped. That spring festival, my parents and I went on vacation to Sonia. The sea breeze was soft, the sun warm, and I had a damn good time. When I came back, my skin had tanned to a honey shade. Normally, it would fade back after staying indoors for half a month, so I didn't think much of it. But on my first day back at work, I walked into the office wearing a pink down jacket, and Blake Sterling's gaze wrapped around me like a damn venomous snake. "Oh my God," he suddenly shrieked, covering his mouth in exaggerated shock. "Ethan, you're so dark, and you still dare wear pink?" His laughter was sharp, ear-splitting, like nails scraping a chalkboard. I'm dying. You don't look like a Disney princess now, do you? What Disney princess is that dark?" After that, he turned and winked at a colleague beside him. "Look at him. He looks like the ugly duckling now." A few colleagues couldn't help but snicker. I froze where I stood, blood rushing to my head. And Lena Morrison, standing right next to him, glanced at me, the corner of her lips twitching upward. At that moment, I heard something crack. Maybe it was our 18 years of childhood friendship. Or maybe it was the love I'd had for her as my fiancée. I grabbed the coffee on my desk and hurled it straight at Blake Sterling's face. Blake Sterling screamed. His makeup smeared instantly, coffee streaming down his cheeks like two black tear trails. "Cough, cough, Ethan Price. Are you insane?" he spluttered, wiping his face in panic, mascara clumping into a mess. I sneered, copying his usual tone. "Wow. So you're a man who wears no makeup to work every day. Eyelid tape, fake lashes, lipstick. Honestly, you're more high maintenance than any woman in this company. How dare you call yourself a man? And how dare you mock me for being dark?" Several colleagues rushed over to restrain me. Lena Morrison snatched the cup from my hand, her eyes cold as ice. "Ethan Price. Apologize." I stared at her, my eyes burning, but my voice came out weirdly calm. "When he was humiliating me, you were smiling. Now I'm just telling the truth and you want me to apologize." She frowned, like she was scolding a brat. "Don't throw a tantrum. An argument is an argument, but throwing coffee at someone is wrong. You were wrong and you should admit it." I laughed. "Yeah, kiss my ass." The air froze. The next second, her palm crashed across my face. My ears rang. Through the noise, I heard Blake Sterling's smug sobbing, my coworkers' whispers, and the sound of 18 years of friendship shattering with that single slap. I slowly lifted my head and looked at the girl who once fought for me. "Lena Morrison," I said quietly, "you've really done it now. We're done." The sound of me slamming the door when I got home triggered the motion-activated light in the entryway. I stormed into my room and tore through everything like a madman. The Little Prince figurine on the top shelf. The anime figure she'd given me in the cabinet. The faded movie tickets stuffed in the drawer. Anything with Lena Morrison's trace on it got shoved violently into a cardboard box. Clink. A glass star jar fell from the bookshelf and shattered across the floor. For my 18th birthday, Lena Morrison had stayed up all night folding 365 stars. Inside each one she'd written, "Lena Morrison likes Ethan Price." I stared at the glittering shards on the floor and suddenly burst out laughing. I picked up the heavy cardboard box, went outside, and dumped it into the trash can, startling a few sparrows. When I finished, my parents still weren't home. I called my mom. "Mom," I said, my voice scary calm. "Cancel the marriage arrangement. Lena Morrison and I broke up." When my mom came home, I was sitting there with an ice pack pressed to my face. She took one look at me, sucked in a sharp breath, and her perfectly manicured hands started shaking. "Who did this?" I buried my face into her shoulder, catching that familiar laundry detergent smell, and I just broke down, straight up sobbing like a kid. Lena Morrison's cold indifference. Blake Sterling's smug mockery. Those sharp, judging stares in the office. All the bottled-up crap spilled out at once. After hearing everything, my mom, who was always gentle and classy, didn't even care about keeping up appearances. She stormed straight out the door. When Lena Morrison's mother opened it, she was still wearing an apron, flowers in her hands, clearly about to arrange them. "What's going on?" "Your daughter hit Ethan Price over an intern." My mother's voice was icy as hell. "Mrs. Morrison, answer me honestly. Has our Price family ever wronged your Morrison family?" "My Ethan Price, since he was a child, I've never even laid a finger on him." Lena Morrison's mother stumbled through her excuses, all broken and messy. Lena definitely didn't mean it. My mom cut her off without blinking. There's no need to say anything else. The marriage between our two families is over. That night, my mom and I sat on the bay window, staring up at the stars. The familiar jasmine scent on her reminded me of when I had a fever as a kid, when she stayed up all night watching over me just like this. Mom. I buried my face into her shoulder, my voice muffled. If you're this stubborn, will it affect your business? My mom gently ran her fingers through my hair. I'd be lying if I said there's no impact. But sweetheart, that's not something you need to worry about. You just need to live happily every day. If the sky falls, you've still got your dad. The next day, Lena Morrison came knocking like a sudden rainstorm pounding on the door. When I opened it, she stood under the dim yellow eve light, chest rising and falling hard, clutching a rain-soaked cardboard box. Ethan, her voice shook. What kind of crazy fit are you throwing now? I quietly lifted my face, letting her see the ugly handprint on my left cheek. After a night, the slap looked even worse. The bruise had spread beneath the skin. 5 purple finger marks, like a damn brand burned into my face. Lena Morrison's pupils shrank instantly. You, how could? She reached out, her fingertips stopping just short of my cheek. I didn't hit you that hard. I sneered and leaned away from her touch. There was a time when even a paper cut would have me holding my hand up to her, pouting. Little sister Lena, it hurts. Back then, she'd call me a crybaby while carefully sticking a bandage on me. And now, she was the one who had slapped me with her own hand. Lena Morrison had never seen me this cold before. For a moment, she looked completely stunned. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Ethan Price, she said hoarsely. You were bullying an intern at the company, and I just got mad for a second. I cut her off. Since you're here, I'll say it clearly. From today on, we're done. The marriage arrangement between the Price and Morrison families is cancelled too. Lena Morrison, from now on, act like you don't know me. If we run into each other on the street, don't come over. And don't ever knock on my door again like you did today. Her pupils shrank violently, like she'd been stabbed. The night seeped into the space between us, washing her silhouette in cold blue light. Get lost, I said, leaning against the doorframe, my voice low and calm. Lena Morrison. She stared at me, totally lost. Is it because I defended Blake Sterling? Or because I slapped you? Her eyes churned with emotions I couldn't read. Ethan Price, when did you become this petty? It was just one slap. If you want, slap me back. Lena Morrison. I slowly pried her fingers off the doorframe. It's not about the slap. It's about you choosing the side of the person who was bullying me. And because of that, I don't want you anymore. The motion sensor light in the hallway suddenly went out. In the split second before darkness swallowed everything, the last thing I saw was the redness in her eyes. It overlapped with the memory of the girl who once got hurt protecting me, yet still smiled and said, "It didn't hurt." Lena Morrison froze. The cardboard box dropped to the ground with a dull thud. A glass star rolled out, scattering fractured light across the floor. Her expression was stiff, like she didn't even recognize the person standing in front of her. Lena Morrison had seen me cry, seen me laugh, seen me act spoiled and playful. But she'd never seen me like this. Cold as ice, with a chill even in my eyes. I didn't mean to. Her Adam's apple bobbed, her voice rough. Ethan Price. I just lost my head for a moment. I shook my head. I don't want to hear it. The night wind blew in through the hallway window, scattering my final words. Lena Morrison, don't come looking for me again. Lena Morrison suddenly grabbed my wrist. Her grip was insanely tight, like she could crush my bones. Her eyes were terrifyingly red, like a cornered, furious beast. Is it really that serious? She ground out, her words sharp as a slap. You're really going to wipe out 20 years of history? Ethan Price. Can't you, as a man, stop being so damn petty? I watched her rage in silence, suddenly remembering 9th grade, when a female classmate had been harassing me. Back then, Lena Morrison had coldly beaten her until she begged for mercy. She wore that same expression now, except this time, it was aimed at condemning me. Yes, it is Lena Morrison, I said. What if I say it is? Please leave. Don't push your luck when I'm still trying to be civil. Lena Morrison suddenly laughed. Fine. Very fine. She let go of my hand. Break up then, Ethan Price. You've got guts. Just don't come crawling back to me later, crying and begging. As she turned to leave, she knocked over a potted plant in the hallway. The pot shattered loudly, triggering the voice-activated lights in the garden. I stood under the flickering light, watching her back disappear around the corner. It felt like watching the little girl from my childhood, the one who used to fight for me, vanish completely into the river of time. A click came from next door. Uncle Morrison stood in his doorway. He saw me, opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, then only let out a soft sigh. That night, I had a dream. I dreamed of the 18-year-old Lena Morrison shouting under a star-filled sky, "Ethan Price and I will be together forever and ever." The next day at work, gossip exploded in the company coffee room, spreading like wildfire. Apparently, Lena Morrison and Blake Sterling were officially dating. As I walked by with my Americano, I saw Lena Morrison standing on her tiptoes, adjusting Blake Sterling's tie. The cherry-red nail polish on her fingertips was blindingly bright in the morning sun. "Lena, Tilda," Blake Sterling said, sounding smug as hell. "Let's go to my favorite Japanese restaurant tonight to celebrate our first day together." "Okay." Lena Morrison's gaze drifted past his shoulder and suddenly met mine. She instinctively tried to step back, but Blake Sterling wrapped an arm around her neck. He followed her line of sight, turned his head, and flashed me a full-on victory smile. Back at my desk, the private group chat was blowing up. I heard Blake Sterling rode to work in Miss Morrison's car this morning. I saw a hickey on her neck. "Director Price, are you okay?" I closed the chat window, remembering last month's department dinner. Blake Sterling had lifted a glass of sake and said, "I hate being around men the most. They're smelly, they drink, they smoke, so gross." At the time, he'd practically been draped over the back of Lena Morrison's chair. "It's way better hanging out with girls," he'd gone on. "Girls don't swear like those men, and you can say whatever you want, Tilda." The moment he finished, the male colleagues exchanged knowing looks. The very next morning, Blake Sterling posted a pitiful update on his social media. "Got ostracized by my male colleagues again, crying face, guess telling the truth really gets you excluded, Tilda." The photo attached was a green Rolex Submariner, one Lena Morrison had bought to comfort him. That evening after work, I was curled up on the sofa ranting to my parents. My mom was arranging flowers. As she listened, she snipped the thorns off a rose. "I've seen plenty of people like him," she said. "Sweetie, don't get too close, or you'll end up getting hurt. Auntie, it's not very nice to talk about people behind their backs like that." Lena Morrison's voice came from the entryway. She was carrying a basket of lychees Uncle Morrison had asked her to deliver, but her eyes were cold as ice. The living room went dead silent, the only sound the snip of scissors cutting through a flower stem. Looking back now, maybe from that moment on, her image of me had already turned into that of a narrow-minded, petty man, while Blake Sterling, in her heart, had become her sincere, uncomplicated ideal. It was only later that I heard the gossip from other colleagues. Apparently, at some point, she and Blake Sterling had already formed a deep friendship. Blake Sterling was good at making PowerPoint presentations, really good. The animations were smooth, the layouts polished, and he could even turn data visualizations, the stuff that gave Lena Morrison massive headaches, into something clear and easy to understand. When I used to help her revise proposals, I couldn't help but nag. "The logic here is wrong. That color scheme's way too harsh." Blake Sterling wouldn't. He would prop his chin on his hand, lean in close to the screen, his hair brushing Lena Morrison's arm so lightly it was almost nothing. "Lena, Tilda, check this out. I made the bar chart dynamic for you. Praise me real quick." The faint blush creeping up the tips of Lena Morrison's ears was exactly the same as back then, when I'd suddenly kissed her cheek. It showed even more during team-building stuff. The last team-building event was a trip to a hot spring. Like most of the guys, I'd always kept my distance from things like that, but Blake Sterling's massage skills had all the female colleagues cheering like crazy. Lena Morrison's friends slung their arms around her shoulders, teasing her. "See? Blake's such a team player. Way better than that delicate flower of yours. I also accidentally saw their private messages. Blake Sterling sent an over-the-top crying emoji. Need comfort, director. Loudly crying face. Ethan Price was mean to me again today. Chew. Lena Morrison replied, ignore him. He's always like that. Next time tell him to go see a psychiatrist. Once, after a department meeting, Blake Sterling openly leaned against Lena Morrison's chest, twirling a strand of her hair around his finger. We're in a proper relationship, he said. Tilda doesn't like people who only get engaged by clinging on just because they're childhood friends, right? Then he suddenly looked at me. Ah, Ethan Price, you don't think I'm talking about you, do you? Lena Morrison didn't push him away. She just looked at me with a weird expression, like she was sizing up something she couldn't stand. That was when it finally hit me. A childhood sweetheart doesn't stand a chance against a fresh spark. 18 years of sticking together, wiped out by 3 months of infatuation. Brutal. Someone sneaked a look at me, eyes full of pity mixed with curiosity. After all, the whole company knew that Director Price, who used to smile only for Lena Morrison, had now turned into background decor for her new romance. I didn't say a word. I just went back to my desk and lowered my head to revise a report. From the conference room doorway, Lena Morrison let out a cold snort. I never looked up, but I could feel her gaze on me like a half-burnt cigarette butt, scorching the top of my head. After that, their PDA just kept escalating. Lena Morrison put a strawberry-themed hair tie around Blake Sterling's wrist. The pink elastic dug into his pale skin like a straight-up ownership tag. Sometimes, you could even hear panting kisses coming from the fire escape. One time, a cleaning lady walked in on them, and the story spread through the entire building like wildfire. He'd always be holding Lena Morrison's arm when they left work, and she'd indulge him with a smile. It was weird. Scenes that used to make my heart shake now looked like a badly acted soap opera. Until one night, Lena Morrison cornered me in the parking garage. She smelled like Blake Sterling's usual cologne, but her expression was complicated, strange, unfamiliar. Ethan Price. Her voice was hoarse. Let's get back together. I sneered and shut it down immediately. Her fingers clamped around my wrist like iron pliers, her palm burning hot, the grip almost enough to crush bone. Her breathing was heavy, the bitter smell of coffee washing over my face, her eyes like a trapped animal about to lose it. Ethan Price. Her Adam's apple bobbed, her voice suddenly soft. I was wrong. I was only with Blake Sterling to make you mad. Let's get back together, okay? If you agree, I'll break up with him right now. I laughed. What did she think I was? Some backup she could call whenever she felt like it? I yanked my hand back. Lena Morrison. Listen carefully. The elevator dinged open. Blake Sterling rushed out, face ghost pale. When he saw us struggling, tears streamed down his face instantly. Lena, someone went to my university and said I was a home wrecker. The school's going to revoke my diploma. Lena Morrison froze. She let go of me and turned to steady him, but he violently shoved her away. Are you satisfied now, Director? Blake Sterling cried, pointing straight at me. Was it you? Are you jealous that Lena and I are together, so you went to my school to mess things up? Now I can't graduate. Happy now. Lena Morrison's hand clamped onto my wrist again, hot like a branding iron. I could feel my pulse slamming against her palm. Her gaze went terrifyingly dark, like she wanted to swallow me whole. Why Ethan Price? Was it really you? I didn't do it. Believe it or not. Her voice was a raw rasp. When did you become this vicious? I kicked her hard in the knee. My leather shoe left a gray mark on her designer dress. I said I didn't do it. Get off me. Don't touch me. Just as Lena Morrison cried out in pain and reached for me again, a slender, fair hand suddenly cut in. The hand, pale and delicate, rested casually on Lena Morrison's wrist, but her expression changed instantly. Ma'am, a clear, cool voice said, carrying undeniable pressure. Forcing someone isn't something you should be doing. I looked up sharply and met a pair of smiling, almond-shaped eyes. Victoria Hayes. A legend from our law school, a sharp-tongued debate queen who could shut people down cold. Senior, I stood there stunned. We hadn't had any contact since the university debate finals 3 years ago. I never expected to see her again like this. Victoria Hayes's lips curved slightly. She suddenly leaned in close to my ear. "Junior, just play along." The second her warm breath brushed my earlobe, her hand tightened. Lena Morrison grunted and finally let go. Before she could even react, I jumped into my car and drove off. In the rearview mirror, the last thing I saw was Victoria Hayes standing in front of Lena Morrison, one hand casually fixing her hair, looking regal and dangerous at the same time, like a snow leopard guarding its turf. The next day was a team-building event, and I felt like absolute crap. The sun was brutal. I walked at the back of the group, cold sweat already soaking through my shirt. By the time black spots crept into the edges of my vision, I knew something was seriously off. The moment my knees hit the gravel path, I heard a wave of gasps. Ethan Price. A familiar sense surrounded me. Lena Morrison's arm was locked around my waist, the grip so strong it felt like it could crack my ribs. Her fingertips were shaking, but her voice stayed carefully calm. "Low blood sugar. You skipped breakfast again, didn't you?" The circle of coworkers around us went dead silent. Blake Sterling stood 3 steps away, his nails digging so hard into a water bottle that the plastic twisted with an awful screech. "Let go." I shoved at her chest, struggling. The heartbeat beneath the fabric was fast and heavy. "I can handle it. Let go." Lena Morrison's eyes flashed red. "Do you have to be like this?" Her voice dropped dangerously low. "Even if you hate me, don't mess around with your own health." Footsteps rushed toward us. The medical staff pushed through the crowd, holding a torn packet of glucose powder. A colleague I was close to knelt down, held it to my lips, then glanced at Lena Morrison with a raised eyebrow. "President Morrison, I think your boyfriend needs you more." Following his look, everyone finally noticed Blake Sterling nearby, his face pale green and white, like he might pass out any second. Lena Morrison froze, her arms finally losing strength. I took the glucose and swallowed it all. As it slid down my throat, a memory hit me hard. A basketball game when I was 16. Lena Morrison had sprinted across half the court just like this, shoving a strawberry candy into my mouth when my blood sugar crashed. The team-building event wrapped up with someone from HR escorting me home. When my mom saw the scrape on my knee, she freaked out and insisted on taking me to the hospital. I couldn't argue, so that evening we went to the nearest general hospital. The waiting area was empty except for one person sitting in the corner. Junior Victoria Hayes looked up, her eyes bright under the pale lights. Her knee was wrapped in thick gauze, dark red blood already soaking through the outer layer like a plum blossom blooming in snow. "What happened to you?" I frowned without thinking. She followed my gaze and suddenly laughed. "It's nothing. Just a small car accident." She said it like she was talking about grabbing a coffee. As a nurse pushed a medication cart past us, I heard her mutter, 8 stitches in her knee, and she says it's nothing. The tips of Victoria Hayes's ears turned red, and she quickly switched topics. "You look kinda pale. Low blood sugar again." Like a magician, she pulled a piece of candy from her jacket pocket. "Strawberry flavor. Your favorite." I felt awkward turning her down, so I nodded and took it. Over the next few days, we kept bumping into each other at the hospital. She came in for dressing changes and I had follow-up checkups. Sometimes, when it rained, she'd hold an umbrella and limp beside me to the parking lot. It was weird. This was the same person who could corner opponents on the debate stage until they had nothing left to say, yet in private, she was ridiculously gentle. That day, the sunlight in the hospital hallway was especially nice. Victoria Hayes sat on the examination bed in the dressing room, the tips of her ears bright red. She absent-mindedly picked at the threads of gauze on her knee. "Junior," she said softly, "I think we're a good match. We're both single. What do you think about considering me?" The checkup report in my hand hit the floor with a clatter. "Sorry, you don't have to answer right now." She bent down to pick up the report, not even flinching when the movement tugged at her wound. "I've got plenty of time. And patience." A week later, Victoria Hayes started showing up downstairs at my company. On Monday, she brought a bouquet of fresh pink tulips, saying she'd passed a flower shop and thought they'd look good on me. On Wednesday, she showed up with a limited edition strawberry cake, claiming it was buy one get one free and it'd be a waste not to eat it. By Friday, she'd even bought milk tea for all my coworkers. The craziest part? My deskmate actually offered her his seat and winked at me. "Director Price, Miss Hayes says she's here to talk business." Yeah, we get it, Tilda." The break room gossip went completely off the rails. During lunch break, a coworker cornered me in the restroom. "I heard Victoria Hayes is chasing you. Is it real?" "No. It's not." "Bullshit." He grabbed my shoulders and shook me. "She brought you flowers yesterday. Roses." The whole office saw it. Outside the glass door, Victoria Hayes was bent over, neatly organizing my desk. The roses everyone was talking about were sitting right there. The gossip was in full swing. He suddenly lowered his voice and leaned in. "Seriously though, Senior Hayes's figure? Kinda insane, right?" He gestured vaguely in the air. "And I heard she's never dated anyone. Man, you should just take the W already." I chewed on my straw, my mind flashing back to a summer afternoon when she'd confessed to me. "I guess so," I said without thinking. "But I haven't said yes yet." "Ethan Price, you idiot," he laughed. "Why are you being so coy? Just say yes already." He suddenly shrieked, and I rushed to clamp a hand over his mouth. That was when the sound of shattering glass echoed through the office. Lena Morrison stood in the middle of a pile of shards, blood dripping from her fingertips, blooming like dark red flowers across a document. Blake Sterling held out a tissue, about to wipe it, but she violently slapped his hand away. "Don't touch me." Her voice was terrifyingly low, and her eyes were locked straight on me. Sunlight slanted in through the floor-to-ceiling windows, washing her face in a deathly pale glow. She looked like someone who just watched their world fall apart. At some point, Victoria Hayes appeared behind me, her warm palm resting lightly on my shoulder. "Junior, I've booked dinner. Let's eat together after work." Her voice was just loud enough for the entire office to hear. Lena Morrison suddenly bent down to pick up the glass shards, not caring as they cut into her palm. Blood slid down her watch strap, leaving a winding red line on the beige carpet. The whole office went dead silent. Her hand was still bleeding, bright red drops tapping out a faint rhythm on the floor. Finally, she walked up to me, her gaze fixed on my face like a gambler throwing down their last chip. "Ethan Price." Her voice was wrecked. "I'm hurt. Can you give me a Band-Aid?" I subconsciously glanced at my bag. I always kept Band-Aids in there, cartoon ones, waterproof ones, medicated ones. It had been a habit since middle school, because Lena Morrison was always getting scraped or bruised. "I don't have any," I heard myself say. Lena Morrison's pupils shrank. She suddenly grabbed my wrist, her blood-stained fingers leaving a harsh red smear on my sleeve. "But you always..." "President Morrison." Victoria Hayes stepped between us, dangling a freshly opened medical dressing from her fingers. "Use this. I already took it out for you." She glanced pointedly at Lena Morrison's bloody palm. "I'm afraid it might not be enough." Lena Morrison staggered back half a step. She looked down at her blood-soaked hand and suddenly laughed. The sound was worse than crying. "Ethan Price, you're so cruel." Blake Sterling rushed forward to catch her. "Lena, I'll take you to the hospital. Let's go. Get lost." She shook off his hand. Lena Morrison's blood was still dripping, pooling into a small, glaring red puddle on the floor. I remembered a rainy day back in 6th grade. Lena Morrison had beaten up a girl who was harassing me until her nose was busted and bleeding. On the way home, she swung her bruised wrist and grinned. "Ethan, you look so ugly when you cry." But she secretly hid the blood-stained sleeve of her school uniform behind her back. Later, that girl brought some thugs back for revenge. They shoved Lena out of a second-story window. When I found her, she was sitting in a pile of shattered glass, clumsily trying to hide the wounds on her arm. "Stop crying. It doesn't hurt. It's just like a cat scratch." But blood kept seeping between her fingers, soaking her uniform sleeve so badly you could wring it out. That night, I ran to 3 different pharmacies and bought a whole box of cartoon Band-Aids. The next day, When I forcibly rolled up her sleeve, the tips of her ears turned bright red. "Ethan Price, have you no shame?" Even so, she obediently let me cover her battered arm with pink kitten band-aids. And then what happened after that? Blake Sterling, wearing his Italian handmade leather shoes, walked past my desk and deliberately knocked my bag to the floor. When the Hello Kitty band-aids scattered everywhere, he laughed like it was the funniest thing ever. "Oh my God, Director Price, are you still in elementary school? Why are you still using such childish crap?" And Lena Morrison was standing right behind him. A faint smile played on her lips. "I don't have any band-aids," I said, looking straight into Lena Morrison's eyes. "I stopped carrying them a long time ago." Lena Morrison suddenly started trembling hard. Her blood-stained hand reached out weakly, like she was trying to grab hold of some long-gone summer evening. Back then, I'd been standing on tiptoes, carefully putting a band-aid on her arm while she looked down at the swirl of hair on my head and smiled. "Ethan Price, when will you little crybaby, ever grow up?" I looked away, eyes lowered. Lena Morrison's hand froze in midair. Blood dripped from her fingertips, splashing onto the floor like a small red flower. She suddenly smiled. A smile as fragile as cracked ice. "Ethan Price, you really know how to stab someone right in the heart." Victoria Hayes's hand on my shoulder tightened slightly, a silent show of support. I turned and walked away without looking back. Behind me, I heard Lena Morrison collapse to her knees. Her sobs echoed through the silent office like the cry of a wounded animal. That weekend, my parents hosted a small dinner party at home. When the doorbell rang, I opened the door to see Victoria Hayes standing there in a beige wool coat, holding a bouquet of white roses. A black Mercedes was parked at the curb behind her. "Junior," she smiled. "Your mother invited me. I hope I'm not intruding." My mom appeared behind me, beaming. "Victoria, come in, come in. Don't just stand there." She shot me a pointed look. "Ethan, why aren't you helping Miss Hayes with her coat?" Dinner went smoothly. Victoria Hayes completely won my parents over with her poise and charm. My father, who almost never praised anyone, nodded approvingly at her take on current legal reforms. My mother kept piling food onto her plate, basically treating her like a future daughter-in-law already. As the evening wound down, Victoria Hayes and I stood on the balcony. The night air was crisp, carrying the smell of autumn leaves. "Your parents are wonderful," she said softly, her fingers tracing the rim of her wine glass. "They really care about you." "Senior, I started, but she raised her hand to stop me. "I know," she said gently. "You're not ready. And I know why." She turned to face me, her eyes reflecting the city lights. "But Ethan Price, let me tell you something. That girl who hurt you, she doesn't deserve to haunt you forever." I opened my mouth to argue, but she continued. "I'm not asking for an answer right now. I just want you to know that when you're ready, I'll be here." The following Monday, the company was buzzing nonstop with news. Blake Sterling had been caught embezzling company funds. Turns out he'd been skimming petty cash and padding his expense reports for months. The finance department finally caught it during a routine audit. Security dragged him out while he screamed and cried like he'd lost his mind. Lena, help me. Tell them it's a mistake." But Lena Morrison stood frozen in her office doorway, her face drained of color. I later found out she'd personally approved the investigation the moment the first discrepancies popped up. Whatever feelings she once had for Blake Sterling, they didn't outweigh her responsibility to the company. Blake Sterling wasn't done yet. As they were hauling him away, he suddenly broke free and lunged straight at me. "This is all your fault. You reported me, didn't you? You jealous, pathetic loser." Security grabbed him before he could touch me, but the damage was already done. The whole office had seen his total meltdown. As they dragged him off, I locked eyes with Lena Morrison. She looked like she wanted to say something, but I turned away. That night my phone rang. A known number. "Hello, Ethan." Lena Morrison's voice was hoarse, like she'd been crying nonstop. "Can we talk? Please. Just once." I should have hung up. I should have deleted her number and moved on. But something in her voice made me stop. "Where?" I finally asked. "The park. Where we used to go. 1 hour." The autumn wind cut right through me when I reached the park. Lena Morrison was sitting on our old bench, the one where we used to eat ice cream after school. She looked thin, fragile, nothing like the confident girl I'd grown up with. "Thank you for coming," she said softly as I sat down, leaving a clear gap between us. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The wind moved through the trees, leaves scraping across the path. "I was wrong," she finally said, barely louder than a whisper. "About everything. About Blake. About you. About us." I stayed silent. "Do you remember in 9th grade when you asked why I always fought for you?" She looked up at the sky, her eyes shining. "I told you it was because you were my brother, my best friend. But that wasn't the whole truth." She turned toward me, tears running down her face. "The truth is, Ethan Price, I was scared. Terrified that if I admitted how much I loved you, how much I needed you, I'd lose you. So I kept you at arm's length. I treated you like you mattered less than you did. I thought if I didn't care so much, it wouldn't hurt so bad if you left. So you pushed me away," I said quietly. "You chose Blake Sterling, someone who mocked me, humiliated me, just to prove to yourself you didn't need me." She nodded, sobbing. "And I lost you anyway. I lost you because of my own stupidity, my own fear." Thin, I replay that moment every single day. Her voice broke. "It was like you suddenly made me feel small. For 18 years, you protected me, defended me, made me feel like I mattered. And then, in just a few months, you made me feel like everything I was, everything I liked, everything that made me me, was something to be ashamed of." "I know," she whispered. "I know. And I'm so sorry." "Sorry doesn't fix the damage, Lena." I looked at her one last time. "I hope you find someone who makes you happy. Someone who doesn't need to humiliate others just to feel powerful. But that person isn't me. Not anymore." I walked away, leaving her crying on the bench. It hurt. It hurt. But it was the right call. Some wounds run too deep to ever heal. 3 months later, I stood at the airport, my suitcase at my side. I'd accepted a job in Singapore, a clean slate, far away from the memories that wouldn't leave me alone. Victoria Hayes drove me there. We stood at the gate, silence hanging heavy between us. "So this is it," she said with a sad smile. "You're really leaving." "I have to," I said. "I need space to figure out who I am without all this baggage." She nodded like she got it. Then, to my surprise, she leaned in and planted a soft kiss on my cheek. "When you're ready, if you ever are, you know where to find me." I started walking toward security, but then a commotion hit behind me. I turned and saw Lena Morrison barreling through the terminal, hair all messy, face desperate. "Ethan!" she screamed. "Ethan Price, wait!" Security tried to stop her, but she shoved past them, heels wobbling, finally crashing into me, breathless, eyes wild. "Don't go," she gasped. "Please. I know I don't deserve to ask, but please don't leave." I looked at her, really looked. The girl who'd once been my whole world now felt like a stranger in a familiar face. "Why?" I asked, simple. "Because I love you." Her words broke out, raw and desperate. "Because I've loved you since we were 6. And I was too stupid, too scared to say it because you're the only person who's ever really known me. And I threw it all away." "You did." I agreed quietly. "And now I need to find myself, without you." Her face crumpled. "Is this really it? After 18 years, this is how we end?" I thought about all those years, her fights for me, the stars she'd folded, strawberry popsicles we'd shared, that stupid stairwell kiss, all of it beautiful, painful, and gone. "You ended us when you chose to humiliate me for someone who didn't deserve your loyalty," I said. "You ended us when your pride mattered more than my dignity. This is me accepting that ending." "Ethan Price," she reached for me, but I stepped back. "Goodbye, Lena Morrison." I turned and walked through security, not looking back. Behind me, I heard her collapse, sobs echoing through the terminal. Victoria Hayes was there to catch her, hold her as she fell apart. On the plane, as Singapore drew closer and home felt farther away, something inside me shifted. The weight I'd carried for months started to lift. I didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in forever, I was okay with that. Sometimes love ain't enough. Sometimes the person you've known your whole life becomes a stranger. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from everything you've ever known and start fresh. As the plane touched down in Singapore, my phone buzzed. A message from Victoria Hayes. Safe travels, Junior. Growth happens outside your comfort zone. I'm proud of you. I smiled, staring out the window at the city lights below. A new chapter was starting, and for once, I was the one writing it.